Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. 'Tis the season to be jolly.
It's Christmas, Looney Tunes fans. Well, it's definitely Christmas. That's precisely why I'm wearing this crap here. And I'm not in my usual setting. Usually I record this up in Atlanta, where I live, but as of right now I'm down in Florida visiting family for the holidays. And the holidays always remind me, because I am one, even though I have the weight of two, that, it reminds me of a time when childhood, really. And I think everybody, that's my theory about Christmas, is that everybody, who, even if they have kids, a little part of you is a child again. And so this is what we're reviewing this time out, folks. And I want to apologize in advance for the sound and everything else. I'm not, like I said, I'm not in my usual studio, so I'm recording this with the iPhone in my sister's bedroom where I'm staying, and I'm editing literally right here with the laptop. So this is going to be fast and quick. This is not going to be the usual type of Looney Tunes Critic review show that you would normally see, like with the Space Jam review and stuff like that. So anyway, every year since 1979, when I was one, until about 1986, when I was, 7, 8, something like that, I believe it was CBS, would run this special, Bugs Bunny's Looney Christmas Tales. And then they stopped running it. And it's an interesting little find. And I was surprised, actually, because my friend Sean, who, if you watch the Space Jam review, which I recommend you do, in the second part I talked about a meeting with Chuck Jones. And Sean was there for that meeting because he, too, like me, and that was indeed one of the first things we bonded on, is that he's a big fan of the Looney Tunes and, read books, and he knows a lot of stuff about it, too. I was very surprised to find, though, that when we sat down to, review this thing and take notes and write it and everything, he had never heard of it, never saw it. And that's so surprising because, again, he became a fan when he was young, just like me. And CBS is by no means cable. I mean, if you have a television in the 80s, you could have seen this thing. So I don't know how well known it is, because I thought it was well known, but somebody who is somewhat on my level in terms of knowing and loving the Looney Tunes had never heard of it, so that was kind of surprising. But anyway, this is the the Bugs Bunny's Looney Christmas Tales. Here it goes.
On we now are gay apparel. Fa-la-la-la. Thank you. You mean our story begins one cold, wintry day.
So in this version of the Dickens tale, Yosemite Sam is Ebenezer Scrooge, Porky Pig is Bob Cratchit, and Bugs Bunny is Bugs Bunny. Anyway, so it's the typical thing we've seen before. Sam is a miser, and Bob Cratchit is poor, and he works for Ebenezer Scrooge. One difference, though, that they made in the opening part of the story, Ebenezer Scrooge actually fires Bob Cratchit on Christmas, and this didn't happen in the original. But Bob Cratchit, Porky, would have kept the job if Bugs Bunny had never shown up. Bugs literally walks in, realizes that Sam is an asshole.
He's an asshole.
And decides to mess with him, with no regard for Porky or for Cratchit and his family. And see for yourself. See what he does. Look.
Merry Christmas! Deck the halls with boughs of holly. Stop! No, and stay up! And as for
you, Cratchit. You're fired.
Oh, dear. If fired on Christmas Eve, whatever am I going to do? Cheer up. At least you have a nice family to go to. Yeah, but how am I going to break their sad news to them? Nice of you to invite me to dinner, Bob.
So he lets him in, and I guess the point of that is that Bob Cratchit is such a good soul that, you know, he would invite you in even though he has nothing. He would share even though he has nothing to share. And yeah, Bugs is kind of a dick. He looks at Cratchit's youngest, which is Tweety Bird, and he says this.
Kind of puny, isn't he?
So, you get me fired. I invite you over to my crib for a measly chicken or turkey dinner or something, or Christmas dinner. And then, on top of everything else, you insult my youngest. But, you know, Tweety being Tweety, he has something good to say. He has a good response.
If you had to live on bird-seed, you'd be puny too.
All right, that was sort of funny. Fine. So at one point in the middle of the dinner, the guy comes. The guy, is that his name, Trev? Yeah. Someone, I don't know who. The light company.
Light company.
They have candles, so he comes and he takes the candle away, and then they get notification that Ebenezer Scrooge is foreclosing on the house, and that's when Bugs decides he's gone too far. And when I say he, I mean Ebenezer Scrooge.
This time that Scrooge has gone too far. Of course, you realize this means war.
Yeah, Sam went too far to fire an employee on your behalf. Like, Bugs, I'm really stuck on the fact that Bugs really is the one who is to blame for all this situation. Anyway, move on. So now comes the point where we see the three spirits, the spirits of Christmas, which, by the way, there's only one, and it's Bugs. And he's not so much a spirit as he is just Bugs Bunny agitating Sam.
Now it's time to play Ghost.
We do learn that Sam has somewhat of a heart before Bugs decides to scare him into being a good guy, which is, by the way, how you got to do it. Because Sylvester, his cat, Sylvester plays his cat in this one, which is, you know, not much of a stretch for him. And so he lets Sylvester sleep in bed with him. And every time I've seen this special, I've wondered aloud. I was like, wait a minute. He's an a-hole.
He's an asshole.
Why is he letting the cat sleep in bed with him? You know? Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so Bugs comes in and scares all of the Christmas cheer that he can into him, and then Sam goes off and he's got all this money in a pillowcase from under his bed, and he goes out into the street, puts on a Santa Claus suit, and just, starts giving money away to everybody in the street. Then after this is kind of weird. Right after the Christmas Carol parody, I guess, the Bugs' Christmas Carol, it cuts to the same characters around a table in a house talking about what they just watched. So Bugs is congratulating Sam as Sam for being, I guess you really do have, blah, 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 a heart. And then Sam says this.
Well, that was only play acting, Rabbit. I intends to get my money back right now.
So apparently Yosemite Sam is a method actor, and if he's going to play a rich miser, he's going to use his actual money. Sure.
Line up, you varmints.
Then we look out the window, and who is that we see? Why, it's the Coyote and Roadrunner, looking, frankly, nothing like they do anywhere else. Because, once again, just because it's this is the DePatty Freeling, just because it's the Coyote and the Roadrunner doesn't mean that Chuck has taken over. In fact, if you want to see DePatty Freeling handling the Roadrunner and the Coyote, which, by the way, you don't, check this out real quick.
If you're on a highway, you're gonna go just up the side or you might end up in a...
So it's basically your average Roadrunner and Coyote short. The only difference is that rather than in the desert, they're now in what I believe was called Snow Summit. Snow Summit. In the desert. There's just, there's you run up the street in the desert, then you find a mountain, and you go up there, and now it's snowing. I guess that happens all the time, right? Sure. But so that's basically it. And Chuck had not yet lost the ability to write and do a good Roadrunner cartoon, and he didn't. When I say write, I mean his usual writing partner. Again, write is not the correct word to use. Storyboard is the better way to go. But anyway, his usual writer was a guy named Mike Maltese, and at this point, I think Mike had just passed away. If not, he would have been working at Hanna-Barbera at the time. We don't suffer from Mike Maltese's loss, is essentially what I'm saying here. However, it's not. You can watch it and laugh and enjoy it, but it by no means is it a legitimate Roadrunner cartoon. The formula for the Roadrunner cartoons, though, are quite foolproof if you think about it, because I've heard it said, I don't want to say by who, but a friend of mine who did work on some capacity for Warner Brothers at some point, when they had to do a Roadrunner type project, and they said it was very easy. It was a Roadrunner project, and it was very easy to do, mainly because the formula for it was so just ironclad. You really couldn't mess with it. And it was only when you broke that formula of Coyote chasing Roadrunner and trying to find, elaborate ways to catch him and stuff like that. When you break away from that formula, it doesn't work. But it's remarkable how many times they've kept the formula in new formats, and it actually works. There are 3D animated shorts now of the Coyote and the Roadrunner that, and I'm a traditionalist, I'm old school. I was, for the longest time, not currently, but for the longest time, I was opposed to CG animation in a lot of ways. And to do a CG, at some point in my past, the idea of doing a CGI Roadrunner and Coyote cartoon was egregious. But these cartoons, these new ones, I have to say, are incredible. They're amazing. I wish Chuck Jones was still alive just so he could see them, because I really do think he would enjoy them. So that's a formula that was put into place from back in the day that holds up now, and if you adhere to it, it'll work for you. Some things are not always so easy, and some of those things are not quite the case. For example, the cartoon right after it, the Tasmanian Devil cartoon. Oh dear God.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Oh, Uncle Buck. Hey, what is it, nephew?
But yeah, so the Tasmanian Devil cartoon, which it was later, I believe it was later, it could have been, named Fright Before Christmas, is hands down the worst. It's the worst thing about the entire special, which is not all that great in and of itself. Doesn't really hold up. But the worst one of all is, they saved the worst for last. And I want to tell you the story, but just right off the bat, the most egregious thing about it is the music. Holy crap, is the music awful. I mean it.
It really is Santa Claus. Or an unreasonable facsimile. Boy, is he a homely one.
It's to the point where I had to look at the credits, mainly because I couldn't believe that it wasn't needle drop music. Needle drop music is, you pay a service to use certain segments of their music for production and things like that. But in the old days, of course, we had Carl Stalling and Milt Franklin, and they literally scored every 7-minute cartoon from scratch. And now we have some doofus with a synthesizer. Not good, bro. Not good. And the other thing, too, it's not just bad music, but it's loud. I mean, Mel Blanc is competing with the music.
Well, Sandy, it's a pleasure to meet you after all these years. Welcome to my humble abode. Just make yourself at home.
So basically what the story is Bugs' nephew Clyde, who I think we did actually see in one of the original, I think it was a McKimson short. So he's out singing, and Clyde comes in and brings him home. Clyde, voiced by the wonderful and talented June Foray. So while Bugs is putting Clyde to bed and everything, the Tasmanian Devil is locked up on a plane, and they're taking him to Australia or something like that for like a zoo or something like that. These two pilots, and they got him in the back of a plane, and he ends up breaking out of the plane, and it's right as they're flying over the North Pole. So Taz falls out of the plane and lands into Santa's backyard. In fact, Taz lands in the Santa suit on the clothesline, and then somehow stumbles magically into the sleigh, and then the reindeer are freaked out by him, so they fly away, and he's still in there. And that gets Taz over to Bugs somehow. Bugs is the first guy, or Clyde Bunny, Bugs' nephew, is apparently the first little boy in the entire world to get presents that night. The deer apparently got the memo, and they're off, and even though they're scared to death of Taz, they make it to that house. So Taz shows up, and and shenanigans ensue. Clyde sees him, and Bugs says, "Okay, you better go to bed, because Santa Claus don't like kids being awake." So he sends him off, and then it's 3 minutes of Bugs messing with the Tasmanian Devil. There are a few good jokes in here, and the problem with it, the reason it's the worst, is because the animation and the music is so horribly done that the jokes don't sell. It's one of those things where you go, "Oh, wait, what do you say?" And you rewind it, and you go, "Oh, yeah, that is kind of funny." But you have to listen for it, but you're not already listening for it. I'll just play those jokes for you right now. Here you go.
Hey, why don't you have a chair whilst I read to you from my nephew's brief Christmas list? Frank Sinatra's old address book.
And of course, there's this one physical gag I thought was funny.
Sorry, all I have is milk and cookies, so enjoy.
That was funny. But other than that, it's just a grim 30 minutes. And that's how essentially it ends. Bugs takes over. Bugs gets rid of Taz. I think they repeated the inflatable life raft gag from Devil May Hare, the original Tasmanian Devil cartoon directed by Bob McKimson. But McKimson was such an amazing draftsman, and could draw such solid, perfect things that when Bugs does the inflatable raft thing, and physically Taz turns into a life raft. It doesn't happen this way. It just kind of turns big and round, and like a balloon, floats off. So then Bugs takes the reindeer and the sleigh, and he takes over for the night and goes off into the sky with Clyde, and is going to deliver the rest of the presents to the boys and girls everywhere. And that is essentially, in a nutshell, Bugs Bunny's Looney Christmas Tales.
Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
Ugh, great line. Anyway, folks, I'm Trevor Thompson, the self-appointed Looney Tunes critic, and until next time, that's all, folks.
by Ferris Wheelhouse.
Ah, yes. Yes, the Sharpie is losing its fervor. Click one of those things, why don't you? I can't even afford Sharpies, decent Sharpies. Look at this. What is this? This is ridiculous is what this is. Why am I talking in an English accent? This is ridiculous how thin this is and how thick and dry this is. They have like 3 different, they come in all these different, like, ridiculous... Oh, it's a CD DVD marker. Oh, excuse me. Well, that makes a lot of sense to have a really pointy, fine point, because, you know, that doesn't f*** up your CDs. No. Hey, Sharpie, we're going to make a DVD marker, and we're going to have it come out in 3 sizes. Fine, superfine, and dental instrument. Ugh. Crap, I broke it. Subscribe.